Today we're going to carve some little fox faces. When I'm running workshops, I always prepare these blanks out of wood, and the children can choose which one they want to carve, and they draw out the features on them and they carve away. And everyone is carving differently. Everyone is different, which is marvellous. We would usually start off with round pieces of wood like this. Sycamore or willow is probably best, but go for anything, and preferably not too green. You can use green wood, it's perfectly okay. It's softer, it's easier to carve, but you want at least half the moisture out of it, ideally. We need a saw to saw up our pieces of wood. It would be useful to have an axe to split the wood initially, a pencil and some sort of mallet like this. These are simple ones, just I quickly make up a bit of Hellman ash. So we split it out and split it out here. So out of this piece we can potentially get two of these fox faces. So I've got my bigger mallet, I place the axe on the piece of wood, lining it up how I want it. Tap, tap, tap until it bites. I can then give it a good whack. And I'm going to cut off the one on the other side as well. This is the centre here, and let's start off like that. Cut a line down here, cut a line across there. So I've got 4 cuts, and then I need to do a V in the top, coming out. I want to come right out to the corner there. I want to leave at least a centimetre's gap before I start this V, so that's what I'm going to cut out. Let's readjust this so this is actually vertical, and cut down. Okay, remember to finish off with the saw parallel to the ground or the bench. You don't want to finish off at an angle because this V in the middle won't actually come out. Let's flip this over, and that's popped out. Right, okay. The wood is getting a little bit tricky to hold now because it's domed like this. It doesn't want to stay in place, so I'm going to have to cut at an angle. And there we go. I'm actually wanting it a little bit more pointy down here. This is more like a cat's face rather than a fox's face, really. It's amazing, just little changes can make these animals into something entirely different. Okay, oh that's reasonable. The most important thing that you will need are gouges, carving gouges. You may or may not have them. Most carving gouges of about this size are about £20, £25 new, and I'd probably recommend sort of more of a 6 or a 7 sweep like this with 20-25mm max width, really. What we also need is a board, a carving board like this. This is just a bit of sterling board, any board will do. The batten screwed along the bottom so it hooks over the side of your bench, and then a couple of other battens on the top, so that when we're carving, we've got something to carve against. And this is really important, that we can carve against something. If we're just out here, the piece of wood is just going to move all over the place. It's impossible to use. And some sort of mallet like this. Okay, let's take our Sharpie and start drawing on where we actually need to carve off. So let's set the eyes in down here. We don't need to take the bark off. This bark is not going to come off. And then we want to cut the ears out there like that. It's always good to put these marks in, because you don't know where to cut if you don't. Most people hold it up at the handle and hit it like that, which is fine, but you need a lot of good control in order to be able to do that. If you hold the chisel near the tip, so your hand is resting on the workpiece, you've got far more control, and ultimately it's a lot safer. When we start a cut, we tend to go in more vertically and then tip the chisel down flatter. All these cuts so far have been going with the grain, going from the highest point, going from the bark down into the wood. Now if we were to turn this round and go from where we have cut into the bark, into the highest bit of wood, and if I was to hit this with the mallet, I would just split all this piece of wood off, which isn't what we want. So we always need to go with the grain. You can see I can get some nice shavings off very easily, and then if I go against the grain, I can put all my effort in there. I'm just going to get the chisel stuck, or I'm going to split this off. And so I've just sharpened this chisel up, and it's slicing through the wood like butter. I'm really not using very much force at all. And you can see again, I'm always working away from myself. Every time, every cut, my hands or any of my body parts are behind the edge. What I don't want to see is someone holding it like that and doing that. I'm sure you're all cringing and shouting at the camera and at the moment, because you know what's going to happen. I'm going to stab myself. So hands always behind the edge at all times. This is just basic common sense. Don't work into your body like this either. Always away from yourself. Depending on the age group you're working with, especially year 5, year 6, this technique of using the chisel is less likely to happen. Some of the children will do it brilliantly. Some of them will really struggle with it. It's definitely worth showing them and encouraging them to do it. But if they really feel after some time and encouragement that they can, just go back to using the mallet. Well, you can see exactly when I've hit with the mallet and all these little ridges going across there. If I'm just pushing the chisel through, that won't happen. So you get a better finish if you push the chisel through the wood, if it's really sharp, and it has got to be really sharp. Your tools have to be sharp. How far we go on with these is up to you. Some people say, oh, that's finished, but we can still tidy it up a little bit more. We can tidy up here, up there, and maybe tidy up around the nose. We need to do a little bit here again, just to finish off the chin. The most important thing here, if you've got a piece of wood in the vise and you're using an edge tool, do make sure that it can't come out of the vise, because the last thing you want to do is to lose control. It comes out of the vise, you lose your balance and you're on the ground with a very sharp tool. So your first few cuts are always very, very gentle. Right, okay, we need just to take these corners off a little bit. When a lot of people would try and come in like this, because that's sort of the easy way to come in. Unfortunately, we're cutting against the grain here, and all we're going to do is to get the chisel stuck or get a really rough finish. So we've got to start at the bottom of the V and work up. So there we go.